All right, cutting Walter off. How's everybody doing? Good to be back in New York after the tour in the Czech Republic. We had 19 gigs in a row. Actually, one was rained out because of the terrible flooding there, but that was pretty surprising that there was that many gigs. We were kind of a little worried when I got there. I saw some crazy flooding, things I haven't really seen before. So the tour went really, really well. I'll probably be doing a video on that coming up. Some clips. Hopefully there will be a live record coming out of it. We've recorded every show, so there's a lot to go through. And I'm happy to answer questions about that too after we talk a little bit about our subject matter for today. So first things first, I have my the Art of Melodic Soloing course that Phoebe has put the link to, and you can use the link below. And that is expanded version now. If you have the original one, if you bought my Art of Melodic Soloing in the past, if you go there now, you have a whole new hour full of material. And what happened was I started looking back at the course, and you go back and you're like, yeah, maybe if I had done this, I thought it'd be kind of cool. So there's an extra hour. If I take you through a different chord progression, I explain to you how I construct the solo, kind of construct it on camera. I did it a bit more in a kind of a workshop-y masterclass way. And so there's an extra hour of stuff in there. It's a nice guitar solo, hopefully. And just added value. So if you have the course already, which is one of my favorites that I've ever done, you already got it for free. And if you do not, it's 60% off using the link below. Also, please do not forget, if you have not entered the DGT SE giveaway, which is over there with my good friends at Watchtower Guitars, please do so. It's going to end pretty soon. It is available in every country except, Taiwan, South Korea, Portugal, Italy, Austria, China, Russia, Hong Kong, Greece, France, Japan, Spain, and the Czech Republic. They are not eligible for whatever reason. I don't make those things. So if you're not in one of those countries, you can have that guitar sent to you too. So sign up. I think you'll dig it. What else is going on? That's about it. So we'll talk a little bit today about a question I get asked a lot. Something I don't think people talk about enough is creating melodies on the guitar. And it kind of ties in with my melodic soloing course and many of my other courses. My Triad course, I got the Triad bundle on sale as well if you want all of them for 30% off. The thing is, I think as guitar players, we can fall really into fingerings and patterns. Like, I know my pentatonic scale and I can play blues licks and I can rip. But we don't think about necessarily creating melodies. And to me, that's the most important thing, to think about creating a melody. So I'm going to use a background track that is in my giveaway background tracks, which is the links below. You can have them all in there. It's all in there. And this one is just kind of like a Dorian track. Where did it go? It's from the Lockdown. Lockdown Jam. All right, so I'm going to play an A Dorian. Let me know if the mix is okay. There's the scale, A Dorian, right? So A minor blues, that all works too, right? But then you start to sound, well, he's playing blues licks over the top, and I think that could be a little bit a bit of a drag, right? So what I would think about is the A Dorian scale. Let's just talk about that. I won't go too deep into it, but it's A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. So it is a mix right on that delay. I'll show you what I'm using today. I'm using the enigmatic and the del verb, so pretty cool. So it's a G major scale starting on the A, and the chord progression is basically just A minor to like an A minor, an A with a D with an A in the bass. That kind of sound. So the first thing I would say to do, and I didn't do this for a really, really long time, is to just play the scale and just sit on the notes. Check it out. So there I'm just playing each note of the scale individually, but I'm just sitting on it, listening to it, and taking in how it sounds. May seem kind of obvious, but not something I did really early on when I started playing guitar. I just had the scale, I'm going to play the scale, or I'm going to play licks. But if I think about that, how can I play, what does it lead me to hear? So I'm thinking about this, right? So... All right, so that's pretty straightforward, right? But how about... And what do I want to hear after that? So you see what I mean? Like I'm taking the time and letting my ear start to think about where I want to go next by just using the scale. And obviously I went out of that fingering, but I started to go up and down the notes of the scale. But I wasn't thinking about technique, or how fast I was playing. I wasn't thinking about licks. I was just thinking about playing those simple notes and how I can come up with a little bit of an idea. And then I think oftentimes we reject what might be a good idea. And I was talking to Scott Henderson about this. So the same kind of thing of being able to understand when you play something that's good and recognizing that you can play something good, and then how to take that to the next, I don't want to say next level, but how to build upon that. So what do we remember most of our favorite songs? It's the melody. My favorite guitar solos are the most melodic ones. I mean, I love solos that rip, but that's more of a, whatever side of the brain that is or whatever, and I appreciate that. But, David Gilmour and Jeff Beck are still my favorite guitar players because they are the most melodic in my mind. You remember everything they play, or most everything. And when they're improvising, you can tell that that's the prime directive, is creating a melody. And if you feel like your playing is kind of weak, if you always think about playing melody, I talked to many of my friends about this, and when I was performing, which I don't do as much as I used to, and then suddenly I'm thrown into playing like 19 gigs in a row. When I was feeling like, I'm not playing so great, I tried to stop myself from going down the doom cycle in my head and think, well, how can I just play melodically, and it'll always be good. It'll always be good. So the idea here, so I'm going to think about how I can, there's my general melody. It's going right down the scale. So how can you start to embellish that? So like I said there. How about? Now, to me, that's a pretty solid sound. And how can I embellish it with bends, right? Let's go that second string now. Now you're starting to hear, it's starting to sound like some tunes, isn't it? Like, da ba 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 da da da. What song is that? You start hearing songs that might be really familiar. I'm hearing, since it's Dorian, it's very elusive to some of the Santana stuff. But when you take your time and you can just play the notes of the scale, and suddenly a melody can start to present itself. It's a matter of taking the time and doing that. So you're taking the scale. Yes, these are my notes from my scale. And now I'm going to solely concentrate on playing music with them. And that can come down to adding in limitations, I think, is an important thing. I'm playing very slowly. Those are like whole notes, half notes, maybe a quarter note or something like that in there. But I'm not playing anything fast. I'm just trying to establish something. And then let my ear take me where it wants to go. Now, certain things are going to be easier. I sometimes find like minor chord progressions, if you're getting into doing this, are a little easier than sometimes constructing major chord progressions. I found that my friends and I have always that, coming from a rock background, the minor and the bluesy stuff is going to be a little easier sometimes than digging into trying to create a really strong major solo improvised. And all of this, is, I'm just taking a peek at the comments. Yeah, it's all this, you got this Dorian sound, this kind of guitar playing. It sounds kind of like David Gilmour. Why? Because he plays super melodically. The vibe of the chord progression, Dorian is in tons of Pink Floyd tunes. Most of Dark Side of the Moon is Dorian. And so then you can start to channel like, okay, WWDGD, right? What would David Gilmour do? Or something like that. So I'm going to build that melody. Let's take the second string. I'll change different progressions at some point too, but so. Go down the third string. So I'm going to bend that. Slide up. Go to the high string yet. Add a blues lick. Was it great? Yeah, all right, so that one wasn't as strong, but you have to go for it. Follow it. See what comes up with you. You might go, oh, that first part was cool. That second part was terrible. So there I am just playing a very simple melodic phrase. Another thing you could start to think about that's equally as strong as playing melodically is taking a rhythmic pattern and repeating that. So I'm going to do something, let's do something kind of obvious. Okay, that's my repeated idea. How about so that repeated idea now, I might be doing it for too long, but that's okay. You're just working through having the confidence and, hopefully the courage that you develop from doing this to like, oh, I can repeat this this rhythmic idea. If you think about something like Jingle Bells, Jingle Bell, da 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 da. That's really more rhythmic. There's a melody, but da 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 da. Same notes. So if I went, it's the rhythm that with that you're the pitch, it's like that rhythm without the delay is sort of unmistakably Jingle Bells. So the rhythmic stuff can be just as important. So I'm really starting to take the time to not think about scales other than this is the scale in which I'm basing my playing from. Sorry, I'm getting warm. But I'm experimenting with creating a melody based upon the scale. And I'm going to try to continue the melodic phrase that I made and take it to its end. Like I said, it may be too much at some point when you're doing it. You're like, man, I overdid that. That's okay, because you're practicing. You are not performing, and you're not, you're not trying to construct the perfect solo. You're trying to give yourself the tools to construct a perfect solo. Not playing licks, not playing scales, trying to create a melody on the fly. So when we're doing something like this, which is a one chord vamp, right? So I say this to all my guys who are working with me all the time in workshops, and I say this to everybody. When you're playing along with a backing track, it doesn't really go anywhere. This is just a loop. It's like a 24 bar loop that I made. And I just cut and paste and cut and paste. And that's most of what play-alongs turn out to be. So when you're trying to construct this great solo, first of all, when are you going to solo for 5 minutes over a chord progression that basically just does that? Never. So in a realistic sense, just to kind of hopefully ameliorate some of your fears about these things or the self-loathing we get, like, man, I'm running out of ideas. I'm playing the same crap over and over again, and this isn't going anywhere. Yeah, it's play along. It's not a real band. It's 5 minutes long. It doesn't change. It's not very exciting. So keep that in mind, right? So it's very difficult to build something perfect like this. And if we look at our favorite solos, I say our collectively, let's say arguably the greatest rock solo of all time, maybe Comfortably Numb, the first one or the second one. He composed that solo, but it's with a set period of time. If the first solo is like, I don't know, 24 bars, let's say. So it's not like this big, long, improvised thing. And even like one of my favorite guitar solos of all time is Machine Gun. There's a lot of melody going on in that too. I mean, he's ripping and going for sounds and stuff, but you're not soloing forever, and a jam track is a static thing usually. So just keep that in mind as you're going through it. So now I've got one chord here. So it doesn't afford me to do much in terms of outlining any kind of chord changes or anything like that. But it is a great way to start going through and seeing what you hear in the scale. So if you write out the chord, you write out your scale. I highly recommend you write out your scale. And just to prove I'm not full of crap, I'm working on some new stuff, and I wrote out C melodic minor and E flat melodic minor with my chicken scratch handwriting, so I can start to look at them, because that's kind of tough to change between those two scales, and something I'm working on is changing between those two scales. So for me, it was important to write them out, so I intellectually go, okay, those are my notes. Okay, great. So I'm not changing from fingering to fingering. All right, so hopefully this is helpful. Let me know. All right, so the next thing, and I'll get to answering some questions in a minute. All right, so the next track, which is also in the collection of tracks that you can get for free down below, is going to be what? Oh yeah, okay. It's basically, I like this one because it's a ton of fun. Wicked Game, the old Chris Isaak tune. So the chord progression before we hit into it, it's in B Dorian. I chose Dorian again because it's cool. It's B minor, A to E. Okay? So our scale it's an A major scale, but starting on B, it's B Dorian scale. All right, so let's hear that. Can you play the change? So, watch. How about... So, as you might have noticed, just as I'm just going down the scale, some of those notes work beautifully, super cool, perfectly, amazingly. And a few of them you might have heard like, that's not a great note on that chord. And the reason for that is we actually now have chord changes. We're still in the same key. And it does come down to knowing your triads. I have my triad bundle on sale, all my triad courses. But it's a conscientious thing of first, I'm going to use my ears. And then if you're not 100% sure about your chord tones and what notes are on your triad, don't worry about it. Almost always, the best sounding note will be a chord tone. So I'm just going to play through this again, and I'm going to play really slowly and just try to find some sweet notes on the top two strings. So once again, same scale. We did A Dorian. Now we have B Dorian. Let's hear that. Starting on this D note. good. How about this? Pretty perfect. So, why is that so perfect? Those all sound great, right? Now, when I was younger, I might not have thought about why those sound really great. Let's talk about it. B minor is spelled B, D, F sharp. A major is A, C sharp, and E. And E major is E, G sharp, B. So what did I do? D, part of my B minor chord, B, D, F sharp, to this C sharp, which is part of my A major chord, A, C sharp, E, and then I resolved to a B. My ear took me to that B, which is part of my E minor chord, E major chord, E, G sharp, and B. So once again, so that's my melody I want to work on. Have another one. So I'm going to start working through this a bit more. So a little funky on a bend there. So what I did there was I bent my C sharp up to the D. I'm starting ways to find how I can embellish that melody. Right, so I'm thinking about conscientiously new strings. Those are my sweet notes. They're the chord tones. And I wasn't thinking about them as chord tones when I first started. I just started to let my ear roll with it, okay? Now, the next one I did, B, A, G sharp. Well, we're starting to get into this idea of common tones or voice leading. Now, once again, this can go down a deep rabbit hole, but just use your ears. And also, one thing I'm a big proponent of, just see the chord progression, right? So I'm going to do this. All right, there's my B minor. There's my A major triad. There's my E major triad. So I'm just going to play over that. I just play those chords. Right? So I'm seeing. Right, now let's continue. The reason why that worked was the root B, root of my B minor chord. Went down to the A, which is the root of my A chord. And the next nearest note to my next chord tone, my ears really wanted to drag me to this, is the G sharp from my E major chord. So let's go further. I'm going to play B, E, and then E. Here's how that's going to sound. Check this out. Start over here again, and now one more. Keep going. So by just going down the chord tones with a mistake in there, I'm just outlining all the changes by just going straight down the scale. Started off by using my ears. And I'm starting to hear, if you listen to the song Wicked Game, you're hearing already some of the things that were played in that song, right? It's not like this stuff is like magically created, like nobody has any idea. I'm just gonna guess. And your ears are the most important thing, but when you start to take a look at what's going on, you can see some really cool ideas. So two things happen there. There's something called guide tones, and there's something called common tones. So the common tone, let's say that second part. The F sharp is part of my B minor chord. Then I went to the A chord and has that E right there, A, C sharp, E. Then I went to the E major chord. So A major, and E major have a common tone of E. That's pretty cool. Here, I started on the D of the B minor chord, to the C sharp, which is the third of the A chord, then to the B, which is the fifth of the E major chord. So this is called guide tones. They're going from one chord tone to the next by usually a half step or a whole step. So there's common tones, we could look for those, and then we can look for the guide tones. Now, so I did a video on this a long time ago. If you want to search on something I might have called Wicked Game, or use triads like the pros, or some sort of annoying YouTube title, to be honest. If I just see B minor, A major, E major, watch. Second string. High string. Right? All really cool sounds. How about Matt's just playing off of seeing. Check it out. So I can start to take that further by mixing it in with blues licks or more scale things. But what I am still thinking about is the keynotes for each chord and how I can start to embellish those notes really slowly and come up with the melody. And if I simply look at my chord progression, use my triads, and start to follow the chord progression, it's all like, it just starts to present itself on, just opens up. Like, melodies start to fall from the sky a little bit when you start to work this. To go back to my initial point about this is not something I was taught initially when I learned guitar. I was like, here's your blues scale, and you play licks, and you can do this. I never really thought about that. When I learned a scale, and I was always trying to solo with a scale, I sounded like I was playing a scale. So if you say, okay, the scale is just a means to an end, these are the notes that I have, and then, well, what's the chord progression? Or how does each note sound on top of that? Now, certain things we can start to see as you mess around. You might play and go, you know, I really like the sound of this C sharp on the B chord. Let's see how it sounds. Sorry. Not so much an E, but you find these really pretty tensions. That's the 9. So there's no reason why you can't love that note. So it doesn't have to be a root 3 or a 5. It can be a 9 or 11 or 13. But the only way you learn to accept those notes as being a cool note, as opposed to everything being the root, I have to let myself to get back to that, is to mess around with it. And just sit on one note over those 3 chords of your chord progression. Go like, yeah, it sounds really great there. It sounds really interesting there. And it sounds like total crap on that note. Okay, so I can't sit on that. So sometimes that's where you find those really cool notes. Oftentimes I can tell you it's going to be a 9 or a 7 that sound really interesting. The 9 is always a great sound, especially on a minor chord. You know, what was that first chord from Love Song by The Cure? Right, I was thinking about that. So it's just an approach to coming at improvisation that is not based upon patterns, scale fingerings, or playing the scale. It's coming from using your ear, exploring, being totally prepared to sound like crap, to mess up, as I did a few times here, and just see what starts to happen. As you guys know, when you follow the channel, like, everything's got a name. You're not inventing anything new. Nobody has ever invented, not ever, but, you know, people are like, oh, you know. So some post on Thread, someone's like, you know, the Beatles didn't think about theory. They just made the stuff up. And you're like, no, they didn't. They know exactly what they're doing. So everything has a name. You don't need to know the name yet, but you start kind of messing around with the sounds. You start getting into some really, really cool things. And just even as you start playing it, there's that brilliant guitar playing on that Chris Isaak tune. It starts, you're like, oh, that's how he came up with that. I mean, his performance, like, I'm not talking about, he still wrote that great solo, but it was not, it was definitely inspired. That's a great solo, a great tune. I think you know what I mean, but it's not something that just came out of nowhere. It's an understanding of the chord changes. Probably experimented over that chord, had played over this kind of chord progression in the past. So what you hear when somebody's recording something or performing is also the work that they've done prior. So it's something to really kind of keep in mind. And one last thought, and I'll just kind of start fielding questions, is what's nice about this is you, as guitar players, if we're thinking scales, very often we end up sitting on our root a lot, right? It's in B minor. B minor pentatonic. You know, I'm overdoing it, but I mean, it doesn't sound bad, but you're leaving a lot of money on the table, as the expression goes. Right? Yeah, I messed that up. Starts to come up with these really cool things that I never saw before, because, you know, sixths and thirds and all these sort of things. And I'm starting to hear like, oh, well, first chord, I'm going to play the flat third. That goes to the third of the A chord down to the 5 of the B chord. So you start to get used to the sound of a flat third, a natural third, different sounds. And that's how melodies are built. Almost all pop melody tunes or anything is built off of the melody, the notes, the root, the 3, and the 5. There are some, of course, that have 9s, 11s, 13s, and 7s. But most pop tunes, when pop meaning popular tunes, root 3, 5 is going to be the notes that they sit and spend the most time on. And as guitar players, I don't think we, from what I hear from teaching for many, many years, that's not the way guitar is often taught. It's more taught about scales and fingerings and soloing and shredding and all that, as opposed to building melodies. So, all right. Let's get some questions. Oh, Beaver, thanks for adding in some of the technical background of stuff like that. You know, appreciate it. All right. Phil Jones. When you're thinking of melodies from triads, can you immediately see all the parent scales and notes around them in any position on the fingerboard, fretboard? Yeah, pretty much. Just because I've done it a lot. You know, and I've went to college for it and worked on it and taught it a million times. But as you can see, just by me pointing out changing from C melodic minor to E flat melodic minor, that's a pain in my butt. I got to work on it. It's the, you know, the CPU in my brain is like, you know, like, got to upgrade the OS on this because it's just too, it's taxing, and it's cool, as opposed to just changing fingerings. I don't want to change fingerings. I want to see everything it is here. But the great thing is a lot of the music that we end up talking about is going to be based upon your major and minor triads. So if you know those, you're really, really getting ahead. And I do see the parent scales, but at this point, I just know Dorian is Dorian. I don't need to look at it as the second degree of a major scale. But whatever gets you there is fine. As long as in your head you say, okay, I'm in Dorian. if you want to make sure you don't overly think of it as like an A major scale starting on B. Think of it as Dorian, because Dorian's got its own sound, this sort of like happy minor thing. This goes for any mode or any mode. They're gonna have their own sound. Okay. Sounds a little Grateful Dead in there too. Yeah, for sure. Lots of Dorian in the Grateful Dead, and jam band. Dorian's a jam band minor. Mixolydian's a jam band major. This is Al Adolphson. Do you think ending a phrase on a chord tone, or I do always think about ending a phrase on a chord tone. I think it is, as I might have stated after you asked this question, it's going to be your strongest note. It feels like the end of your sentence, right? So everything's, it's like you're putting the period at the end of the sentence. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-bum, as opposed to, hey, what are you guys doing? Or today, or even think about this, like, if I just have the cadence wrong, I feel like, what are you guys doing today? Right? So that chord tone is very much, what are you guys doing today? It's the period at the end of the sentence. It's the completion. It gives the listener and the player a point of resolution. Okay. Okay. Let me see where we go. Going back here. Hope everybody's doing well. The Brooklyn broadcast. Yeah, the lockdown stuff. That's where this all started, right? You guys have been here a long time. All right, let's see. We go. Memory of Livery, Dickie Betts. Yep. Allman Brothers Minor. Allman Brothers Minor is almost always Dorian, and Allman Brothers Major is almost always, not always, Mixolydian. It's just the sound. Does it seem like there's a bigger impact on descending phrases? Not necessarily. I think it's just, no, I don't think so. I might have just played a nicer one at that moment than ascending. All right, let's give them some questions. Blah, 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 blah. Let me see what we got. Okay, moving ahead. Sorry, guys. Looking for the questions. I don't want to skip anybody. Update on that signature guitar. Okay. Well, this is the Michael Tuttle, Jeff McElroy signature guitar. Yeah, we're just getting a slightly larger neck put on it, and we will get pretty soon announcing taking some orders. This has got an 840 neck on it. I'm putting an 860 on because I like a little bit bigger, but we're going to offer two necks. Some people like a little bit of a, I don't want to say this is thin. This is not. I just like a bit of a medium neck, a medium fatter neck. That's all relative. I've got some guitars that are huge necks, and I can't play them for very long. After playing this on the road and touring with it, I absolutely love the guitar. I just find I want just a little bit of a thicker neck. It's what I'm used to. But this is 840, which is considered to most people a medium, to a lot of people, is a medium neck. So it's all relative. It's going to go 860, which is just a bit bigger, rounder, which I prefer. And I think my hands, having had some hand issues, I always find a little bit of a larger neck works really well for me. Like the DGT neck is really nice for me. Like my Les Paul, it's a little bit bigger. So that's what we're doing. And we're just deciding on the pickups. Right now, these are Ron Ellis pickups in there, which won't be part of the guitar just because they would increase the price dramatically. On the road, I was using DiMarzios, and I'm working with DiMarzio on maybe doing a set of noiseless with them, or working with Michael on his pickup. So we're just fine-tuning it pretty soon. I'm pretty much sold on slightly larger neck, 7 1/4 radius, 6105 frets. I'm just loving the thing. And it's so great. It was funny. I was at a bunch of gigs and let people check it out, and they were like, that's a pretty flat radius. What is it, like a 10 or a 12? I'm like, no, it's 7 1/4. And just Michael's fretwork is just so astounding that it has all the things I really love about a 7 1/4 neck, but with some of the real playability of a flatter radius. And this may sound like absolute lunacy, and even Michael asked me if I'm crazy, if he thinks he's crazy. I think And my friend Matt at 30th Street agrees with me that we think that the 7 1/4 radius just sounds a little different. Pretty cork sniffy. A lot of people are probably going, no, that's nonsense. But I don't know. I'm not the only person who's brought it up. Maybe it's psychosomatic, whatever. It does feel different in my hands. I really love the way it feels with chords. Okay. Yeah, don't forget about the DGT SC giveaway. Thanks again, BB, for that. Guys, yeah, I have a chance to win a free guitar. It's a great guitar, too. Really great. Jason Carter, off topic for me, but as usual, did you discover anything good, bad, or new about your Tuttle signature while you're on the tour? Oh, I discovered that. Nothing bad at all, other than just trying to get the pickups right, or the neck dimension a little larger for me. Good, it's a dream to play. Plays stunningly well in tune, stays in tune. It's light, sounds great. So there's no bad. There's just putting a little bit of a bigger neck on for me. And like I said, when we start making the guitar available, you'll have a choice of the normal size neck like this, or a bit of a fatter neck. And then what pickups? I was using the DiMarzio noiseless, which I really liked. And then we're just trying this out to see where I'm going with the pickups. Let me know what would you guys prefer noise-free pickups? No, it's a deep hole figuring out if you want noiseless pickups in a guitar versus standard ones. They both have their pluses and minuses. The biggest plus of a noise-free pickup is that it makes no noise, which is huge on certain gigs. The downside is it just doesn't really totally react like a single coil does. So sometimes you're really weighing that when you're on a stage. There's really an amazing thing of playing any venue and being able to play a ballad or anything like that and not have any noise coming out of your guitar. At certain times, I was missing certain single coil elements in touch sensitivity on my playing. But nothing that's not, does it outweigh it making no noise? That's only something you can decide. Nice color of blue must be the color the angels choose. Yeah, this is right. Lake Placid blue, and you can tell it's great. It's super thin nitro. Already have a few performance chips and wears and stuff like that, which I kind of dig. It's a real aging from actually touring with it. So it's really thin nitro, and so it will age nicely and sounds really good. All right, let's see what we got next. Yeah, as Bibi was saying, it was slightly fuller neck will help with the hands. Generally, thinner necks can cause trouble in further hand. Yeah, for sure. I definitely found that. There was just a miscommunication with Michael at first about the neck size. My earlier guitars from him had a little bit of a thinner neck, so I like the fatter neck for my hands. As I got older, I cannot play. I can't play like a Charvel neck. I had a Jakey Lee Strat, which I kind of loved, but I had to sell it. Sounded great. It was cool and fun, but that neck was so thin it was killing. My hands would hurt in a very short period of time. And our thoughts go out to Jakey Lee after being shot on the street. Yeah. Anyway. How did you find Watchtower Guitars? I'm near Morristown, New Jersey, and since they're in a house outside of town, it was a challenge finding them. Great people there. How did I find them? Oh, a friend of mine works there. My friend John. Went to college with John. He's one of the guys who works there. And then just went out to the store and we totally hit it off. And they're great guys and it's a great store. And they have, Two Rocks and they'll carry Tuttles. And, they have all the companies that I use and Vemram and now they're carrying Ron Ellis. So we just have a really good friendship. It's great guys. Really great store. So I highly recommend them entirely. Is the giveaway international? Yes, as I said before in the beginning, the giveaway is international except for a few countries, which I use a third-party service to handle the giveaway because then it keeps it all on the up and up because you can't do a giveaway and then just give it to anybody. There's laws against that. So it's not good in Taiwan, South Korea, Portugal, Italy, Austria, China, Russia, Hong Kong, Greece, France, Japan, Spain, and the Czech Republic, sadly. Everywhere else you are eligible to win the guitar. I have no control over this stuff. There's obviously some sort of international rules that I got no control over. I can control the weather with my mind. I just can't control international trade. Okay, smart tube. I think of the way is melodies is very different. From the root of the melodies is the feeling about what I want to say with deep emotions and discover after the notes and scales. First feeling, yeah, I just play through things first. Play the scale. Don't think about in terms of what note of the scale you're playing just yet. Just play through it and just start to hear it. Experimentation is always where I come up with the coolest stuff. Inevitably, everything's got a name. I think it's important that you give the name to it, but you need to spend the time and mess around to see what you find. Okay, my experience with noiseless N3 pickups on an American Deluxe Strat is that I regret trading in my Squire anyway because I don't have a Strat sound anymore. They were nice, but they were nice for high gain. Yeah, you know, I do play some higher gains, so there's pluses and minuses of all these things. Like the rooms I play in New York, I'm totally fine with normal single coils. When I find they can be problematic is when you're playing a different room every night and you're like, wow, this sounds great. And then some days you're like, this sounds terrible, or it's really noisy. Fluorescent lighting, dimmer switches, bad wiring. There's all sorts of stuff. I also don't play with as much gain as I used to when I was younger, playing in hard rock bands. So I don't find it to be that much of an issue. The only time I sometimes find it to be an issue, sadly, is my job here. Like some days, and where's the spot? There it is. Like it kind of goes away there. Everything is set up permanently here. I cannot move the guitar or move everything because you have windows over there and it just ruins everything. So you have to it took a while to find this spot in the house where things could work. So one day, seems like the world shifted in Brooklyn and it became noisy in front of my computer. And I've tried everything. I've tried moving monitors this way and all. It's this maybe coming from the wall, you know. And then people are like, well, you can get this unit or that unit. It starts to get really, really expensive. And then there's no guarantee it won't make the hum. So I do have a pickup. My black Strat, the black Landau Strat, has the noiseless pickups in it for just these situations as well. I always like having a guitar with noise-free pickups. So, all right. You know, there's some really great ones. I don't think the DiMarzios sound bad. They sound great. But when you're used to playing real single coils the majority of your life, you get so into it and you lose stuff. That being said, depending on what the gig is, I would just use them. If I'm just playing in a band as a guitar player, and it's not a spotlight on me, I'm going to go for the guy who makes no extra noise. You know. Yes, can you tell us a bit about the delay you're using today, please? You love how it sounds. Yeah, if I can lift this up, I think everything's kind of I'm using two fun things today. That's what we're hearing today. It's the UA Enigmatic, which is their Dumble thing, and the reverb and delay is coming from the Delverb, these things sound great, don't they? Yeah, the Delverb is awesome. I could do a video on these coming up if you want. Those guys are my friends, and they sent me this stuff. This came while I was on the road. And I also don't want to be the kind of guy who puts out a video the same day as everybody else does with a new pedal. I kind of don't really like doing that. But this thing is pretty great. As you guys heard from the Clapton stuff, the Lion's really great. This thing is awesome, the Delverb. So it's got the reverb and delay, hence the name, all in one. And if you want your own, and you live in the United States, I've got links down below from Sweetwater. My affiliate links, as that helps me out a little bit. So yeah, I think this thing is freaking awesome, and it's all in one, which is great. And this, I'm really shocked at how good this sounds. It might be my favorite UA pedal. I like the Lion a lot. I haven't tried the other ones, but this Enigmatic is really, really good. I think the best demo I've seen done of it is by my friend Corey Congilio. If you go over, he did a live thing where he ran through the whole thing. So I think I watched his video, and I would highly recommend, if you want to learn what this pedal does, to go check that out. Did a great job. To the Delverb, they're expensive, but they're not that expensive, especially for what they do. Reverb and delay. So spring reverb, I got the spring on right now. You can do a plate. Turn off the delay. and a hall. So they have different sounds. All right, so the spring, let's crank that up. You got color and you got color on it and the mix and stuff. So it's a great pedal, and it's all in one. There's no presets though. So I just have it on, the reverb's on all the time. I just turn it up, and then I have a tap tempo and a delay. So there's some things about these pedals that some people get annoyed by, that like, okay, like how come I can't do MIDI? How can I do presets? This is not what they wanted to do. They wanted to just make it more like an old style stomp box. But boy, it sounds good, doesn't it? Might go on my travel board. Angus Clark in the house. I like Kingman noiseless pickups. Yeah, they're great. All those are great. You know, they're all great. It's just what, I need a Faraday cage, right? The Clapton Strats have noiseless pickups. Yeah, those are great. Remember the Hispanic cab dispatch guy whose voice came up through my amp when we played? Angus and I used to live together in Brooklyn. Yeah, there was like the cab dispatch. We're talking, what, 90, 91, 90, something, right? And it would come through his amp, and it was really loud, and it was really annoying. Forgot about that. That's pretty funny. All right. Now you want mountaintop tone, maybe for style, less air, not a good transfer medium. It's probably a sweet spot halfway up the mountain. It depends what the gig is. I like having a guitar that has noise-free pickups. If I need to play as a real utility guitar, they will have noise-free pickups in it. It's my music. I think I'm pretty cool with the true singles. They have a thing. But I'm not knocking the noise-free pickups. Some of them are really great. Are they 100% there? No, but they're really close. And if you do any gig that requires you to have some less noise, it's either that or humbuckers, right? Or deal with the noise. If you're playing a lot of bars, I'm going to try to start bringing noise, because you have no idea what the lighting's going to be. A friend of mine was talking about that the other day. He's like, yeah, play this club regularly, and I'm under like the Miller Beer High Life sign, and it's just insane. So he just went to noiseless pickups for that. So, hey Jeff, do you regularly use your juggler? How do you use it, ampless or part of the pedal board? I haven't been using I haven't been using the juggler. In fact, I did sell it to somebody who really, really wanted it, and I can get another one if I need it. I just wasn't using it for a few reasons. I think it sounds spectacular. The juggler is the Kingsley pedal. That's sort of the preamp section of a Dumble. Kind of big, and to travel with it, and I found it sounded amazing. It takes 12 volts, so I'd have to get a different power supply. Running it into the front of the amp, like I started going through all this stuff, like trying to figure out how to make it work. And then if you see my video on my pedal board, I got some pedals that I like that sound really great. So they did it enough for me. If I've got a good amp and I'm playing through some nice pedals, I think that pedal sounds amazing, but it was kind of more than I needed, and I found it to be a lot of things to fiddle with that sometimes I'm not like a Dumble or any kind of amp, but just taking time to dial that in was not where I found the pedals were regular, the Van Ram or the Keith's bus pedal or Emilio's corner, the Gladio, like they're kind of much easier to dial in real quickly. All right. Where do I get a sick hat like that? Bailey's. It's a Bailey's hat. Bailey's. That's where I got it. Guitar Grandpa. I use a Delverb as an always on reverb and delay in my Friedman Little Sister, and it's terrific. Yeah, it's a great pedal and handles effects loops really, really well. And I like the reverb. I mean, UA stuff always sounds great. I have a few things by them I haven't dug into just yet. They sent me one of their reverbs. I can't remember. not the small single pedal, Heavenly. I've got the Heavenly. I haven't had any chance. I got it right before I went away. But the Lion, man, you guys go and check out my Clapton video on the three Clapton licks. I think the Lion sounds amazing. I didn't change anything. I just used my Firebird and I bumped up the overdrive just a little bit. And I used the fresh cream setting that they have in the phone app, and sounded great. Now on the road, I brought it as a backup with a Duncan Power Stage, or it was a Power Stage, right? And I plugged it in. We had a little more time at the club, and I plugged it in. I was lucky enough to use my friend Hermano's Sir SL67 50-watt head. Sounded amazing. And threw a cabinet with a greenback in it, or creamback, I should say. So that was just kind of what I grew up playing. Marshall with Celestion with some pedals. Like, can't go wrong with that. I did miss the two-rock feel a little bit because I've gotten so used to that. But, you know, I could have done a lot worse than a high-end Marshall, which I love that as well. But I had a point. Oh, so we plugged in, just for sound check, I plugged in the Lion into the Power Stage, and I was like, you know, that sounds pretty good. And of course, the keyboard Walter's like, I don't know, I don't really hear a difference. I'm like, of course, shut up, you're a keyboard player, you know. But it was good. It was really good. So I had not had a chance to turn that up to volume, and I did. And I was like, you know, if the big amp went out, I feel like that would still feel pretty good. And I just used the super bass setting. You know, I set it for more of a clean sound, and then tried putting pedals on top, and it was really nice. It was good. Okay, Duke, right? Hey, Joe Urbanowski, how's it going, man? Off subject. Can you compare your Bloomfield drive to your studio signature? Sure. Talking about the two rocks, I'm fortunate enough to have three. Yes. The classic reverb signature, which is awesome. The Bloomfield drive, that's a 40 watt, and I've got the studio signature. The one that gets the most use is the studio signature, just because of the size and the volume. It's super loud at 30 watts, really, really loud. And a lot of headroom, so I end up using the pedals for the overdrive and not the amp for that. So it's really just like the traditional clean in a sense. It's a pedal platform. And I've talked about that a lot. That's usually what I end up doing on the road, because then I can control the whole volume of the whole thing. And then not have to deal with effects loops. I don't have anything against effects loops, you know, if you have an amp with a good effects loop. But then you're thinking about 4-cable methods, and if I like changing delays and reverbs, and I'm doing stuff that I don't necessarily want to do. So I run usually everything into a clean amp, and then run through the pedals. My favorite two-rock probably so far that I own is the Bloomfield drive, though. And I would say the cleans of the Bloomfield drive are a little closer to me than the clean. Okay, the studio signature is supposed to be like a smaller version of the classic reverb signature. I think Eli might kill me, but I think the Bloomfield drive clean and the studio signature clean are a little more similar than the classic reverb. The studio signature and the Bloomfield drive are a little more mid-forward in the really nice way. And everybody knows who's played. It's been like, oh man, it's great. And it's nice and small. And the cool thing about the studio signature, which I have not done, is it fits overhead on a plane. Thought about bringing it to Europe with me, but I got the other amp. But I would do that and just get a transformer over there. So the studio signature is awesome. So that's my most used two-rock for performing. And at home, the most used is the Bloomfield drive. I brought the Bloomfield drive to gigs, but it's heavier than the studio signature, and I'm lazy. And I don't, you know. Now, the classic reverb signature, I use that a fair amount, but that's actually been used way more live by Matt Schofield than me. So when he comes up to the East Coast, he borrows my amps or my reverb signature in my 212 cabinet. So he's done that. He's put a lot of miles on that amp. And so when we do gigs together, which is fairly regular, I'll use the Bloomfield drive or the studio signature through 112 cab, and he'll use the classic reverb to a 112 cab. How's that? I'm ultimately a bit more of a Marshall guy, even though I just said something kind of the opposite. This is very Fendery, which sounds amazing. The Bloomfield Drive is a bit more dumbly, of course. There's just a bit more of a mid thing that I really am so used to from playing Marshalls and guitar. How's that for an answer? Can't go wrong with any of them, though. But the Studio Signature, it's hard to beat that amp, especially in the combo. Okay, one more thing about that. Like many amps, the Studio Signature is very small in the best way. But sometimes when you're playing at home, it sounds a bit mid-rangey. It doesn't have this big, huge sound because it's a very small cabinet. And that may seem like a thing, like not as much fun to play at home, unless you got the bigger cabinet. But on a gig, that little small cabinet with the mids sits perfectly. It's really interesting. I had to talk with Eli about that. So on the gig, that thing cuts right through. You don't miss all that low end, because sometimes that low end is sort of wasted on a gig if you have all that big full sound. BB saying, if you want a jumble, that's the TS1. Yeah, but you better have your A game on. Yeah, the TS1, I want one, because I want one, and I could, but they only really sound good really loud. That's, just being realistic of like running around with a 100-watt amp or a 50-watt amp in New York with a cabinet, and it's just a big pain in the butt. So the Studio Signature, every time I use it, I am completely happy. So, we want everything. We want everything. Yes, Lelandberg, Bailey's of Hollywood. Yeah, that's where I got the hat. This is the Bentley model. It's the Bentley model. People ask me about it. And people ask, why do you always wear a hat? It's got no freaking hair. I don't like the way it looks on camera. It looks really like Mr. Clean on, so shiny Scottish guy head. And I started wearing it because of that, because of the cameras, and it just, and then people were like, oh, the hat, and became a thing. It's like Slash, but, all right. Let me see some more questions. Jason Carter, we are working on booking gigs in 2025 in Germany and Austria. That's what's going on now. I got to get a video reel together. So we are planning to get into Germany and Austria in 2025, and maybe hopefully down to Italy if I can sort that out. So be coming through on that. So what Beaver's saying about the A game on a TS1 is, yeah, man, if you ever played a Dumble, they are very unforgiving amplifiers. They're very hard, very quick. The Bloomfield Drive is a bit more of a softer version of that, which I kind of like. It's more of a rock amp in many ways, I think. So I love the Bloomfield Drive. It's awesome. I love all of his amps. And he also now, T-Rock owns Divided by 13, so. All right. Let's see if there are any more questions. Any questions, guys, before, it's it's after 5 in New York time. I'm just going back if I missed anything. Blah, blah, blah. Just one more thing about the Two Rocks. This is like everything in the world, man. Like when I was talking about playing the Bloomfield Drive or the Marshall Live, any of these amps sound spectacular loud. And sometimes when I get a hankering for a different amp, I just turn up one of my amps that I already own. I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't need this, So something to think about. You'd be good with any of these. Zero Shep. Jeff, do you have any issues with your hands, fingers, or wrists? I've been playing for almost 50 years now. I have osteoarthritis. I do too. Yep. And it sucks. Yeah. Both hands. Very early, but my pinky especially, and this joint right there. So a little bit of a fatter joint going on here, a little bit in this pinky. Maybe a little bit of a motion going on there. And I've always kind of had that. Yeah, it stinks. And some people get it, some people don't. So a little bit of a snappy thumb. So there's maybe something going. Yeah, it's all sorts of issues. This is some reason why the thinner neck. I have to be very careful with the size of the neck that I played. And I find that makes a big difference with my hands. Things that I found, I don't really talk about it much because I don't want to be known as, oh, Jeff's got arthritis. And then you start to find out that, hell, many guitar players I know have arthritis because, at 57, and genetics, that's a big component. It runs in my family. So I just do what I can, experimenting with string gauges. So like I went to Europe with nines on this, and then after about 2 gigs, I wanted to shoot myself. I usually play tens, and the nines were just too light, and I just wasn't, things didn't sound right, and I was playing harder, and things were terrible. And so I bumped up to tens, and that took a little moment to get used to. And I just put 9.5s on this right now, like before I got online. So that's why I was missing one of these two little things that I missed. Just because while I'm off the road, if I try that middle of the head, but the that I just got to go easier because I feel like there's a bit of borrowed time going on. I mean, because it's not a linear disease apparently. Like so, according to, I went to the hospital for special surgery in New York, which is sort of like where the Mets go and the Yankees go. Like I went to what's the best place? I'm gonna go there. And they looked at my X-rays and said, well, your good news is it's not that bad. And interestingly, some people feel pain sort of differently because I've got people whose hands are a total disaster and they don't have any pain. So for ups and downs, my hand hurts a little bit, but it's like on the X-rays, it's not that bad. It doesn't make you necessarily feel better when it hurts when you play. So I do all sorts of exercises. I'm looking around. Here it is. Like, the hand putty stuff that they gave me to do these exercises. I have a hot paraffin wax dip that I got. So before I practice, I dip my hands in it. Then I warm them up. And so when I was on the road, I couldn't do any of that. So I do have some medication that I'll take when needed, called meloxicam. I am also trying all the standard stuff like Jason Carter, was it Jason? Yeah, Stan Samos. I take glucosamine and chondroitin and turmeric, curcumin to any kind of anti-inflammatory. Because any kind of anti-inflammatory you stand for a really long time, the medications have some side effects potentially. But on the road, I went, I don't know, 13 days, and I'm moving gear, my own gear, moving amps, setting this shit up, and changing heavier strings. And then near the end, I started to feel it a little bit in my pinky, so I started taking some of the meds. So I think it's pretty good. So I think a lot of it, and what I've discussed with a lot of people, is the prevention and staying on top of all of it. You guys know Tim Lurch, guitar player. I've talked to him about it. So what I was saying about the progressive end of it, like it'll probably get worse, but it's not necessarily... the doctor was like, but it may not. Like we never can really know because it's not going to get better, but it comes down to managing it. So, what are you going to freaking do? I'm not going to stop playing guitar, so I just work around it. So what do I end up doing? It's mostly the pinky that's a bit of a pain, the last joint, which is the most common one. I just started kind of refingering things and not using my pinky as much. You know what I mean? So what are you going to do? Like you can let it get you, or you can just keep on going. But yeah, man, I feel you. It sucks. It just sucks. And you're like, this is that getting old stuff. And basically what the doctor's like, yeah, welcome to being your age and being a professional musician. Yeah. It's like, I see people like you all day. And not in a mean way. It's just like, if you stay on top of it, pain management, do exercises, it has helped. And keep my hands warm. One of the problems, my hands are always, I have very hands that lean towards cold. So I had hand warmers on the road because you're backstage and you're trying to warm up, And people would say play slide. Yeah, no, you play slide. All right. Do I wear ear protection while playing? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, man. Um, yeah, I have custom molded earplugs that were well worth the money. I usually use like high end push-in ones, but the custom molded ones are great. Always. I've had a hearing test a few months ago to get and got those, and fortunately, my hearing is much better than they had expected, much better than I expected. They were like, "Wow, you must wear earplugs a lot," because usually musicians have. I do have tinnitus or tinnitus a little bit. Well, not some days it's worse than others, um, but that's just occupational, and I can see where the dip is. It's the hi hats. It's like that upper register where a hi hat is. But my hearing is still in a 90 something percentile of where it should be. So I was quite surprised, as was my doctor. But I always wear them, and people are like, why didn't you just turn down? I'm like, it's not, it is the guitar, but it's cymbals. It's if you're playing, I don't have the professional ones are great because they bring down the volume but keep the music the same. So I've got like, with my band, I was using the 15 dBs, and I've got a set of the 25s you can put in, and that was too much. And something like the 7s were too low. But yeah, 15 dB is working with the band I was playing with at no point. Okay, this is a Atlantean guitarist. Can't stop as it's getting late here in the UK early tomorrow. I just want to say hi and smash the like button if you can. Catch the rerun. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it. Thanks. Okay. Back to Zosushep. Thanks for your honesty. Funny thing with me, it's way more painful for me to play my Strat than my 4 other humbucking guitars, which have wide fat necks, but it doesn't stop playing. Yeah. So, but some days are more challenging. Yeah, some days it hurts a little more than others, and then I just kind of lay off those days or work on something else. But yeah, I have. It's really, the neck shape is really, really important, I've found, and so that's one of the reasons why this is not thin, but I want it to be a little fatter. And I also like the neck on the DGT is really great for me. I think David said it's about 8.7. It's hard to say. It's a lot of times it's the shape of the neck. You know what I mean? But yeah, so something bigger when you put it in your hand, you're like, okay, that's got some size to it. That's the neck I usually like. If the neck is too big, I can't play it either because I don't have big hands. So you know what it is for me, at least with this part of my hand, is if it's too thin here. Like my hand always is on sort of the back of the neck. A very thin neck, there becomes a space between, like when I had that Jakey Lee or any kind of Charvel neck, and that's what messes me up. I have to have, this sort of thing, You have tinnitus as well, No, it kept on ringing and ringing. Okay. Matt Gibson, which gain structure switch on the back do you prefer in the studio SIG? I have it usually, I sometimes put it on the middle, which is the Matt Schofield thing. That's that sort of slightly more push, a little more rock sound. Or I'll just put on a 2-rock one up top. I like all of them. I don't... Hold on. It's in the middle right now. That's kind of fun. I like the way it sounds in the middle. A little more mids. Have you tried a Strandberg? The neck shape is very ergonomic. It's not a Strat, but it might help. I'm doing fine. I just can't play the Strandbergs look-wise. It's just, I can't do it. No offense for those who like them. I get it, but it's not for me. And so a good size Strat neck is totally fine. And I think it comes down to just staying on top of it and then working out the string gauges for what allows you to play for the longest amount of time. And so the struggle I had was I've been playing 10s my whole life on Strats, and then I tried 9s, and though my left hand liked it, my right hand just plucking really hard, and it was getting kind of snappy and all that. So, I'll try the 9.5s, which I have on right now. We're running late. Sorry, BB. Hold on. Here we go. Next question. Is that something else here? Oh, sometimes I like to hear you talk about your Tuttles versus your custom shop Strats. Oh, they're way better. The Tuttles are way better. Custom shop Strats are really great, but I always need some sort of fretwork done on it. Need a setup. I'm not saying custom shop Strats are not great guitars. They can be, but and the ones I have are good. They make good guitars, but Michael's guitar is a handmade guitar, start to finish. One guy does the whole thing. Cuts his own necks, cuts his own bodies, makes his own pickups, puts in his own frets. He does everything. So I have Masterbuilt. His is better. Just it's one guy, not a corporation. And every guitar that goes out is his reputation, not Fender's, if that makes sense. No, I mean, if you have to say, I like how things say Fender on it, of course I do. But in terms of a guitar, yeah, I think it's far superior for all the things that I'm looking for in a guitar. And I've got a vintage Strat, so I don't. The headstock is not that important to me, or the name on it, as is a super playable guitar with a relationship with a guy who I'm friends with. I don't miss it. I haven't touched my custom shop Strat since I got this. So, and the idea of this thing was, I want a guitar that I can play when I'm not playing this, and in terms of playability, this plays, and that's got a beautiful fret job on it. This is way more playable. Now, in terms of sonically, I mean, guitars are guitars. Does my vintage Strat sound better? Yeah, I think it does, and it better. You know what I mean? That's why I bought this stupid thing. But this still sounds great. When I'm playing this on the road, I don't miss that, if that makes sense. And that's a really important thing to think about. It's always about that A-Bing thing. If you A-B stuff, but yeah. Hey, yeah, Jason Carter. When USA Fenders at work, the QC is terrible. Sometimes sharp fret ends, necks not straight, all around poor sometimes. Yeah, I mean, as much as I want to say Fender, and I love Fender, I mean, I'm a Fender guy. This would be the cost of like a custom shop, somewhere around the $5,000 range. Not inexpensive, but it is a handmade guitar. The Masterbuilts are like $10,000, and I can't wrap my head around why a bolt-on guitar that's not vintage would cost $10,000. And I've played some of the Masterbuilts. I own one. My Landau's a Masterbuilt that I traded my Klon for, and it's got a big old high fret on it. So I got to send the guitar back to Michael, have him take care of it. I've had Michael's guitars for 10 years. This one I've had forever, and I finally had him refret it. Nothing has ever gone wrong with this thing. No high frets, nothing. It's been great. So all my old True Fire videos, this is still a great guitar. So I think so. That's my comparison. If it absolutely has to say Fender on the headstock, well, then you got to get a Fender. But if you're kind of up in the air about like, I'm looking at the Sir, I like Sir, and I like Anderson, and I like all these other things, I would highly recommend you check out one of Michael's guitars. They are my favorite, not just because he's my friend, of that whole custom builder. I think he's got the finest fretwork that I've seen. They're just really, really playable, really great. And, it's one guy responsible for the guitar. So there you go. And we will have a signature model. And hold on. That's why I did the model with Michael. I've been playing his guitars, I say on and off, for 20 years. I say on and off because the only reason why I went off of playing his guitars is because I bought a vintage Strat, and that became the main guitar. But I'm doing that pedal show next month. Thank you, Mick and Dan and BB and everybody. I'm going to bring this because this is the traveling guitar. This is the guitar. Like the vintage Strat, yeah, I'll take that with me in America and all that. But, this does everything I want my guitar to do on a gig. And I can do all that, my favorite Jeff Becky stuff, and not worry about doing that with a vintage tremolo, which it is. And so I feel I have a lot more freedom with this guitar to do whatever it is that I want to do, So. Yeah, people always say, two hands, Django Reinhardt. Yeah, but who wants to rework everything they do? I mean, necessity is the mother of invention, of course, but at the same time, it's a bummer. Yeah, I mean, that's life. There's worse things that could be happening, but at the same time, your pinky's there. Like, boy, it hurts to use that today. You can play a mixed vintage Strat. Yeah, I'm sure it's great. I'm super happy with mine as well. I got a really good one, 2 good ones. The 68 is great too. But in terms of, like I said, on the road, this is what I got this for, and it exceeded my expectations. So, all right, everyone. BB's got to go to bed, and he's being super cool about hanging in. Once again, my Art of Melodic Soloing is 60% off. If you an expanded edition, I really like that course. I like all my courses, but really like that one. It's because it's basically what the beginning of the show is about, trying to find melodies and how you outline chord changes and how you can build melodic solos in a conscientious way of going through it. There'll be some interesting pedals for you to look at, Jeff, but I can't talk about it. I've been texting Mick, so maybe yeah. I'm going to probably bring my board, which is going to be a big pain in the butt, but they have all the pedals that I have at the show there too. And pedals, there's so many. Got to settle on something. The hi-hats are the big assault on the ears. Cymbals, ride cymbal, there's a crash cymbal has always been, for me, where's the tinnitus this year? Worse than this year. Playing the 55 bar for years. I stood right here, drummer right there. All right, guys, thanks so much. I will see you guys next week, and then hopefully I'll see you. Hey, Devin, what's up, man? How's it going? And I'll see you guys next week, and I will have a video most likely on Sunday. Sign up for YouTube freebies, get all the stuff there, and then get the free jam tracks and all that kind of stuff. All right, guys, I appreciate it. BB, thanks so much for everything as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.